Episode 246, Beetles. Welcome to Trifles, a weekly podcast about the Sherlock Holmes stories.
It is, of course, a trifle, but there is nothing so important as trifles.
Yes, the stone was Mazarin, the carbuncle was blue, and the mane was lion, but there are so many other details to pick apart in the stories.
Pray, be precise as to details.
You know the plots, but what about the minutiae? Have you ever stopped to wonder about what kind of chemistry experiments Sherlock Holmes was running? Or what a Yeggman is? Or why Holmes's index was sorted haphazardly?
You are very inquisitive, Mr. Holmes.
It is my business to know what other people don't know.
Scott Monty and Burt Wolder will have the answers to these questions and more in Trifles.
The game's afoot.
Episode 246, Beetles. Hello and welcome to Trifles, the Sherlock Holmes podcast where we delve into the details in the Sherlock Holmes stories. I'm Scott Monty.
I'm Burt Wolder.
And Burt, I don't even know how to begin this. Have you got your pants pulled up by your knees, and are you up on a chair?
Well, yeah, but at my house, that's just Tuesday. What's the deal with that?
Oh, well, in this case, I think we're trying to stay away from insects. You know, those things that go creepy crawly in the night.
Oh, all right.
I know. Not everyone's favorite thing, but an interesting subject nonetheless. Before we get into it, let's remind everyone that our show notes for this episode are available at ihose.co/trifles246, all lowercase. That'll get you directly to the page with any links or associated things that we think you need to see, like our social media handles, which is at I Hear of Sherlock on all of the major socials, and of course our Patreon account, which will help you support the show as we keep the lights on here. For as little as $1 a month, you can support what we do here and, help us come up with great ideas. Well, this is that time of the month when we talk about exotic animals. It's a series we've been doing here on Trifles in season 5. And, you know what? The last time we talked about exotic animals, Bert, we were talking about worms. Yeah. And we actually got a listener comment in. And I wanted to play it because I thought it was worth noting. It's from Paul Miller in England, and he was out in East Sussex looking for Holmes's retirement cottage, he said. And while he was binge listening to Trifles, he got to worms, and he said he loved hearing about one of his childhood favorites, the slow worm. But we got a few facts wrong about them, so I wanted to give Paul a chance to clear the air, or in this case, clear the dirt.
Hello, Scott. Hello, Bert. It's Paul Thomas Miller here. I've just finished listening to your Worms episode of Trifles, and I wanted to clarify a few points about slow worms. Contrary to what you said, they're not actually very slow. We used to get them in my playground when I was at school, and they're very quick little animals. The worm part of their name is also quite misleading. They look more like a small snake, about 20 inches long at most. The Latin name for them, Angui fragilis, literally means fragile snake because they can shed their tail. But again, they're not a snake. They're actually a type of legless lizard. The difference between a legless lizard and a snake, apparently, is that they have a pelvis, which is the reason they can shed their tail. As I've said, the common name slow worm has nothing to do with them being slow or worms. In fact, the slow is a corruption of the Old English for slay, meaning that they eat lots of worms. So there you go. Yeah, I'm sure they would have made great pest controllers. Unfortunately, the numbers have massively reduced in recent years, and I can't remember the last time I actually saw one. But anyway, keep up the great work, lads, and I look forward to the next episode.
What a terrific comment.
Yeah.
I had absolutely no idea. I mean, I have not made such a mistake involving the etymology of an animal since I read originally about Charles V and the diet of worms in the 16th century and made all the wrong conclusions. I mean, when I found out that the diet of worms was in 1521, I started eating. I'm not even going to tell you what I started eating.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I should throw fragile snake or legless lizard your way, Bert. But
legless lizard, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, indeed.
And to think you had that in the playground, when, wow.
It gets all the fun. Well, let's move from etymology to entomology. Right? This is one of the classics. We don't really think of entomologists too much, but they are an essential group of people. And entomologists, of course, are concerned with the study of insects. And we do come across a few insects here and there in the Sherlockian canon. And we thought we would turn to one volume out of a wonderful series by Donald Gerard Jewell, late Sherlockian from I believe the Philadelphia area, maybe Baltimore area, somewhere in the mid-Atlantic. He wrote a series of, I think, 9 volumes in the Sherlock Holmes Natural History series. And this is the 4th volume called Butterflies and Blind Beetles, a monograph on insects and insect collecting in the time of Sherlock Holmes. So why don't we use this publication as our guide as we step through the stories and look at some of these exotic animals in the canon?
Well, it sounds good. And a great place to start is the place where many people who want to talk about insects start when they look at the cases of Sherlock Holmes. And that's with smack, smack, smack. 3 gone before you could wink. And, of course, that's old Jeffro Rucastle boasting to Violet Hunter in the adventure of the Copper Beeches about his little boy, Edward. Isn't that Edward?
Edward
Yes.
Rucastle, yeah,
and
with his slipper.
Hobby, yes.
Now, let's just step away from the insect itself. We'll talk about cockroaches in just a moment, but is that really something, as an employer, you'd want to be bragging about, that either you have a household that is infested with cockroaches, or that you have a son who is hell-bent on killing them? I mean,
well, that's only part of the conversation, and that's always, it's given short shrift to Edward Rucastle, because I have it on pretty good authority that as part of that conversation with Violet Hunter, Jeffro said other things. For example, I think he said, Edward is very, very artistic. Why, in the mold that's built up on the wall of one of our kitchen, one of the walls in our kitchen, Edward can draw a magnificent landscape with his fingernail.
Oh, well, you would imagine that at the Rucastle household, they could have had a cat because the dog was chained up. Right, the household could have supported a cat, and the cat could have taken care of the insect problem there. But Don Jewell reminds us that the cockroach was one of the more common insects in Great Britain, though the 3 species claiming English ancestry were inconspicuous creatures observed out of doors by only the most curious naturalists. They were, in fact, so seldom seen that no common names were ever attached to them. Ectobius laponicus, the largest, measured only 1/3 of an inch in length. Ectobius perspicularis was nearly as large, but it lacked its cousin's brown color, appearing pale straw instead. And Ectobius panzeri was smaller still. Its color fell somewhere between the 2 extremes. This cockroach was found predominantly on the beaches between Sussex and Cornwall. Perhaps it attracted Holmes's attention in his retirement.
Now, isn't that interesting? Because what I gather from that is that the cockroaches, which Don Jewell points out is one of the more common insects in Great Britain, were by nature, by habit, not found inside houses or homes. They were found, as he says here, on the beaches between this particular cockroach found predominantly on the beaches between Sussex and Cornwall. And so there you have the British cockroach not being a part of anyone's business or household. And he points out that the house infestations came from ill-smelling foreigners from the Far East.
Oh my God!
Which is perfectly representative, I think, of the attitudes of some Victorian ladies and gentlemen.
The old dirty foreigner trope.
And these were commonly called black beetles. And the interesting point there is the cockroach is neither black nor a beetle. But apparently,
the slow worm is neither slow nor a worm. I see a pattern emerging here.
Yes. I'm sure we'll encounter, another small, irritating beetle-like insect that, with their usual grasp of speech and ability to describe things clearly and accurately, the Victorians probably called, brown hairless.
There you go. Well, so it would have been unlikely to find cockroaches at 221B Baker Street.
Well, not necessarily, because, apparently it's Britain's history as a great seafaring nation, and it's the docks of London whereby these things come in. So they come in off the ships from the Far East, apparently. And the laundress with her basket, says Don Jewell, was of great assistance to the cockroach in making its way to other more fashionable parts of town, because the warmth and water in the washhouse made it a haven for insects. And from there, from metropolitan areas, they were carried in hampers and paper parcels and boxes to the suburbs. So that is, that system of traveling and distribution of a species that isn't native to a particular country is something that we've seen before, and apparently that's how the cockroach is spread.
Fantastic. Well, while we think about the spreading of cockroaches, let's pause for this quick commercial break. It's all well and good to have a subscription to the Baker Street Journal. In fact, the most recent issue just recently came out and is making its way to mailboxes all over the world. But when you're looking for scholarship past rather than present, the easiest way to go about finding that is with the EBSJ. The EBSJ is a PDF archive that provides a complete set of the Baker Street Journal from its inception in 1946 all the way through 2011 on a single DVD in PDF format. That's 276 issues with more than 18,000 pages spanning the old series, the Christmas annuals, and the new series all the way through 2011. Will there be another EBSJ to update us in the last decade? Well, we certainly hope so. What format will it take? Well, that's up to you to find out. But get the EBSJ version 2 on DVD while it's still around. Find it online at bakerstreetirregulars.com. All right. Well, the good news is that if cockroaches did appear at Baker Street, there were a number of ways to get rid of them, slipper smashing aside.
Well, before we get to that, one of the things that Don Jewell, mentioned in, this magnificent essay book on butterflies and blind beetles from the naturalist's perspective, is that despite these foreign oriental cockroaches, which invaded British soil, there was another one, he says, and in the first half of the 19th century, another invading species set foot on English soil, and he says this was the croton bug, Blatella germanica. And now that's all he's ever going to say about Blatella germanica. But Blatella germanica is commonly known as the German cockroach. It's about half an inch in size. And it is really the species of cockroach that give all other cockroaches a bad name, and they're very dangerous. They carry a lot of viruses and bacteria and parasites on their body, and they're commonly found in lots of places, particularly in structures. I read online throughout Florida, and they're a troublesome insect, and it takes quite an effort to get rid of them.
Oh, goodness. Well, I'm glad we don't have to worry about those right now.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So if Mrs. Hudson were unfortunate enough to see a cockroach invade her larder at 221B Baker Street, would she be on her hands and knees with slippers?
No. She would be turning to her friendly Post Office London directory for finding local firms specializing in the destruction of vermins. And apparently, there was a vermin destroyer nearest to 221B, John Chilcott, at 15 Stourcliff Street. Now, I don't know quite where Stourcliff Street is or was. And there were a variety of products that Mrs. Hudson would have found in the local newspaper. There are advertisements here from Whitaker's Almanac, which, of course, has a Sherlockian prominence, the 1897 Whitaker's Almanac. Steiner's Vermin Paste kills rats and cockroaches. And, 3 pence, 6 pence, and a shilling for glass jars. It's used all over the world, they say. And what you would do is you'd get this paste and spread it on a sheet of brown paper or cardboard, and just put that down, and encouraged cockroaches to eat it, and then they scuttle off to their hiding places to expire.
I say, Holmes, Mrs. Hudson's put out the cream cheese once again.
I say, Watson, have you looked at the bottom of your boot lately?
Oh boy! So that is fantastic. So Blattis, BLATTIS, was available from chemists generally, or could be ordered direct from the factory. And it probably contained phosphorus, which possessed insect-killing powers. I wasn't aware of that.
Spreading phosphorus around your house, just don't light a match. And then there's sulfur dioxide. So what you apparently do is come home with a little bag of brimstone. Now, who doesn't like to come home, after the end of a long day of work with a little present for those in your house? So look, family, I've brought some brimstone.
Well, it was particularly appropriate after the Sunday sermon. Bring home the fire and the brimstone.
And apparently you burn this, and it gives off sulfur dioxide, I guess. Ugh. And there you go.
I'd rather live with stink bugs, I think.
And the insects are taken care of as well as Aunt Amelia, who was napping at the time, and we didn't know.
Yeah. Well, and here's where it gets interesting. Don says, no doubt the deal table where Holmes kept his chemical apparatus contained compounds which, if called into action, could have produced serious consequences for the insect population. Perhaps he mixed up a little something for Mrs. Hudson from time to time. More likely, he would have appreciated the elimination of the cockroach as a problem requiring his special talents in the science of deduction, and his solution would have been original, yet elementary. One control method. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, you go ahead. I think this method is absolutely amazing.
And this is great. One control method worthy of the master himself was that involving a mixture of 1 part of plaster of Paris and 3 parts flour. This was set out in a container where the roaches congregated. Another container filled with water was placed nearby. Access to both substances was made as easy as possible for the cockroaches, which, after readily eating the former, would become thirsty and drink heavily of the latter. And in time, their intestines would become clogged with the hardened plaster of Paris.
Yeah. Well, that is really enlightening, because now I know why my sourdough bread doesn't rise. I mean, I didn't realize that by mixing the flour with a little plaster of Paris, I mean, they're both white. I thought it would be helpful. Yeah, I thought the bread would last longer. Color me stupid.
Not a bad idea, but I thought you were making baguettes with the plaster of Paris and flour. Well, we could keep going on. I feel like we need to split this into a two-parter because we haven't even covered butterflies yet, and we haven't gotten through the end of the Beatles section.
No, we haven't.
I can't wait to hear what George, Paul, and Ringo have to say about this.
Well, yeah, well, none of them liked Yoko, but that's a trifle.
It is, of course, a trifle, but there is nothing so important as trifles.
Please join us again next week for another installment of Trifles. Show notes are available on SherlockHolmesPodcast.com. Please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and be sure to check out our longer show, I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, where we interview notable Sherlockians and share news of the Sherlockian world.
You've taken my breath away, Mr. Holmes.
I have been as blind as a beetle. I thank your grace.